What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the eCommerce Influence Podcast. My name is Austin Brawner, and I'm fired up to bring you an episode with Val Geisler. Val is somebody who's been in our community, the e-commerce community, for quite some time. I've known about her from her work as an email copywriter and running an agency called Fix My Churn. She is now the customer evangelist at Klaviyo. And I want to interview her and talk to her about her transition, talk to her about email marketing for e-commerce brands and SMS. And she goes deep. We nerd out really deep on email marketing, marketing automation, things that are working, mistakes businesses are making. We talk a lot about copywriting and the value of brand and how you can use copywriting and customer interviews to be able to increase the perceived value of your brand. There's a lot of really specific examples. And I think you're going to get a lot out of this episode if you are running marketing or growing a business. It's going to be excellent for you. And some of the examples we also have are also in the coalition. If you're not a member, we talk a little bit about just building flows and marketing and all that sort of thing. And we've got a bunch of you got an email intensive course in the coalition at brandgrowthexperts.com. If you have not signed up, it's a great place to head out. So let's bring in Val to the show. Cool. Well, Val, welcome to the show.
Hi, Austin. It's good to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. I think the first time we've chatted, but I've observed you from afar ever since my friend Wilson Hung was like, hey, you got to go check out Val's website. She's doing a lot of cool stuff similar to what you're doing. And I went over there and I was like, damn, Val is a really good copywriter, an excellent copywriter, I would say.
Thank you. I always like to tell my clients that I'm not a copywriter, I'm a copy paster, because I do a ton of customer research and then I just literally copy and paste it into wherever I need it, whether it's my own website or their emails or, it's the easiest way to get copy.
I like that. For people who don't know what type of customer research you are doing, what does that mean to you?
There's lots of different kinds of customer research. And most of the people that I worked with when I was consulting, they would say, I would say, the first way we need to start is that I need to go and talk to your customers. And they're like, I got you. I talk to my customers all the time. Our product team talks to the customers, our customer success people. We have so many tickets with our customers. You can just look through all that, speed it up. You don't have to go talk to people. And I get the intention there. And I love that those conversations are happening, but those are very product centered conversations. And that's true whether you're an e-commerce brand or a SaaS company. When you run a product or even a service-based company, most of the time, people who operate brands are very brand focused in those conversations. So asking about flavors or features, or should the button be green or red, or, what is this? Show me around this page. What's the checkout experience like for you? There's all these things that we focus on our website, on the product, and it has very little to do with the actual customer and the problems that they're trying to solve. So that's what I'm trying to get at. I use a framework called Jobs to be Done. And the intention is what is the job that the customer has for your product? And it's most likely not what you're selling to them. So, a lipstick's job is not to put color on your lips, but it's to give you confidence or to help you, land that new client or, feel great about the way that you look when you walk out into the world. Or maybe your audience is new moms and the job is simply to feel like you're something besides a mom for while you're wearing our lipstick. So if you're approaching things from that angle, you get that connection with your customers. And so that's the kind of research that I'm doing. And what I'm looking for, the kinds of conversations I have with customers is really about them, the product, the job that they're trying to solve for with this product, and who they are. Like, what are the big problems that keep them up at night? What are they really proud of? What do they struggle with? Those kinds of things.
It makes sense. It's not like what other types of flavors of cereal can we put out? It's like, what is your morning like? Like, what are the challenges you face in the morning?
It's that Henry Ford quote, if I had asked people what they needed, they would have said faster horses. But instead he gave them a car. And that's exactly, I feel like he's the originator of jobs to be done, right? Like he kind of pioneered that before it even was coined into a framework.
I love it. I think this is great. And we can start here and go into it a little bit more, because I think there's a big difference there's a lot of people that are writing emails in the e-commerce space for their businesses. And there's a lot of really bad emails. There's some good ones, but a lot of really bad ones. A lot of the ones that are really bad comes back, in my mind, not to the fact that they're making the wrong offer or making the email that doesn't look good, but it's the fact that it's not really connecting at all with the audience. The copywriting is really poor, and maybe it's just slapped together and sent out. When you are doing this customer research, like how do you actually do it? Do you bring people up on a Zoom call and do you go through and have a conversation with them? Is it surveys? What does it look like to you?
It's both. I usually start with a pretty big segment of customers, and I start there for two reasons. One, because a lot of brands just have a lot of customers, and we try and narrow it down by, most recent purchases, things like that. But it's still a sizable list, a couple hundred people. And I can't just go through that list by email addresses and know who has a good story to tell. So I run a survey, and the survey has lots of different questions in it about who they are, about the problems that they're facing, about how they go and find information when they're trying to solve a problem. Where do they go? Those kinds of things. And then the last question I ask in the survey is if they would be open to an interview. So they pre-qualify themselves a bit, one through a yes, no, and then two through what are their answers? Okay, let's take all the yeses. What are their answers here in the survey? And who has something that's worth digging into? And then going through and inviting each of those people to one-to-one interviews. So Zoom calls and record them. I get a transcript. So it's really easy. I don't have to take notes. I can just talk to them and listen to them. I think that's the biggest part about customer research that most people miss, is it's really about listening. When people say, talk to your customers, what they actually mean is listen to your customers. And the message of talk to your customers, I think, muddies the water a bit, because brands and marketers are busy doing the talking and not listening. And the real good stuff comes out when you can actually just listen.
I love it. And with those recordings, you can just pop them into, do you use something like rev.com or otter.ai or something like that to get them translated?
Yeah. Both of those tools. A new tool that I'm using in my role now is called Enjoy HQ. And Enjoy is really great because it's like a central storehouse for all of your qualitative research, and quantitative too. But Enjoy has a nice little built-in transcript service. So if you upload a video to Enjoy, you can click a button and get a transcript. So it's really nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like transcripts around the world. Just let's transcribe everything.
It really does make a huge difference. One of the things that we implemented, so I have a coaching community called the Coalition, and we do like live trainings every single month. They're about an hour long. And one of the things we implemented that's been really awesome was we just take those, put them into a transcript, and then put the slides in there, and you can digest them much, much, much faster. I enjoy reading a lot more than watching. It's super daunting, especially if you're going to watch a customer interview that you've already gone through. To rewatch it and try to take those notes is just too much.
Yeah. And then Enjoy actually allows me to, it turns video into searchable content when you have a transcript. So you can, if somebody's searching for, if you're looking for a particular word or you're talking about a particular problem, you can go through and search those videos for that word and it'll take you right to that timestamp. So it's really great in that way because so many videos just aren't searchable. You have to listen to the whole thing or have the notes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I want to talk about your new role and what you're working on, because when Wilson was like, go check out what Val's doing, my understanding was you were freelancing and doing, and you also had copywriting, maybe an email marketing kind of agency to a certain extent. And now you are working with Klaviyo. Yep. Tell me about that. What made you excited to jump at that opportunity? And what does customer evangelist mean to you?
Yeah. So I did own an agency. It's called Fix My Churn. We were focused on subscription brands. So started with SaaS, and Wilson was my first e-commerce customer when he worked at Kettle Fire, managing growth there. Wilson is super smart and knows that a lot of SaaS subscription model translates to an e-commerce subscription model, and you can apply a lot of those same learnings and get better results. So he had me come in and work on some subscription email stuff there. And it was kind of my gateway into the world of e-commerce and subscription e-commerce. Lots of CPG brands, a couple of membership sites. Worked with a t-shirt company that had like a monthly t-shirt subscription, which is kind of cool. So there's all different ways people have subscriptions, and we worked mostly on email. There were a few use cases for like help documentation or updating affiliate programs, because email sits in the middle of all those things. You know, you send a post-purchase sequence or a welcome flow, and it links out to all these other things. And so you want consistent messaging throughout. But we really focused a lot on email specifically, and spent a lot of time working in Klaviyo. And over those last couple of years, working with e-commerce brands and really understanding them and really enjoying that space of this exciting world of e-commerce. I mean, and commerce in general, you know, there's so much happening. Retail, DTC, just e-com in general is exploding. I don't think you can be a commerce business without an e-com element. So we spent a lot of time there. I did have a small team. We grew and worked with all different kinds of brands. And in that process, was a Klaviyo customer myself and got to know some of the people on the team. And for whatever reason, I actually don't even remember how this position came across my radar, but it did. And I couldn't get it out of my head. 2020 was a difficult year for a lot of service providers, my team included. You know, when people are afraid of a pandemic or, you know, of how people will be spending their money, they start to cut. And unfortunately, email is typically at the bottom of people's to-do list and priorities. And they're going to cut email services before they cut a Facebook ad agency or another service like that. So there just were like customer issues in 2020, and it was a hard year. My kids were home full time, and it just kind of over the course of the year made me reflect on what I really wanted. And I want to go back to and say that at the beginning of the year, I had an opportunity to work with a brand that the head of growth there was Chris Speak, who is one of the co-founders of Jobs to Be Done. He and Bob Moesta were pioneers in that space. And I had an opportunity to work directly with him and watch him do jobs interviews and understand how jobs applies to the business overall. So like all of that kind of perfect stormed into just this evaluation of what I wanted. And I spent a lot of time in my work convincing clients to take on this research element. They wanted me to write emails, and I would say, yeah, yeah, I'll write emails for you, but I have to do the research first. I have to go talk to your customers, and that takes time. And they wanted the emails yesterday. And so I was constantly like pushing and pulling with my clients to do the research. And then here's this customer evangelism role, which is largely do customer research and then, share it. And it was like, that's my favorite part of what I'm doing on a regular basis. And it's the part that I have to like hard sell to people.
Yeah.
And here's this company that I love. I love their product. I love their customer base. I know a lot of people in the space, and they're asking for somebody to do exactly what I love doing. And so it just felt like it was kind of the exact right time to make that change. And the people on my team were transitioning and taking on roles in other places. And so it was just this, contracts were winding down with clients, and it just worked out. I think it kind of landed in my lap.
It was especially weird last year because what you say about like people reducing expenses for service providers, it was like in March and April reducing, and then in June speeding back up and being like, I need it to happen now because things are growing so fast.
Yeah.
It was very interesting to see to see the industry as a whole like change like that, and fear combined with greed, all these things coming together in a very weird way.
Yeah, in a super weird way. And like lots of different agency owner friends had all kinds of experiences depending on what services they provided. So the more broad your service base was, the more likely it was that people hung on to you unless you were priced so high that they were afraid. But yeah, that combination of fear and then greed, what made for an interesting year. And it also just made for interesting humans. Like I felt like there was something really different in the way that people interacted with their contractors, their service providers in 2020. It kind of became this like, you're going to do this for me, and less of a relationship. And maybe it's that greed element and fear at play.
I think it has a lot to do with also people not being in touch with other humans.
Yes.
Like being very virtual, right? Like when you lose, I think I was reading something about how the quickest way to make a society more violent is to isolate them. I mean, even if you look at like a prison, right? People get moved into solitary as punishment. That's the worst possible thing. And all that can kind of go together in a way where it's dehumanizing when you're not actually connecting with the people as often.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I enjoyed running my business and I loved the clients I worked with and the projects that we worked on, but it just felt like this thing keeps coming across my radar, and all these other elements are at play. So let's dig in and see what's there. And ended up joining the team at Klaviyo in the middle of February. And I am the customer evangelist, which means it's my job to tell the stories of our customers. And I get to do that both internally and externally. So that's, to me, what's really fun is that a big part of my job is making sure that our team knows our customers really well. And I think that's something that is missing in a lot of brands, is especially big companies. Klaviyo is getting to be bigger and bigger. And in these big companies, there's this miss of who our customers actually are. And there's meetings talking about customers without anyone who represents the customer in the room. And, planning customer journeys and looking at our customer experience and not actually talking to customers in that process. Yeah. So that's a big part of my role, is to make sure our customers have a voice inside of the company, and then sharing their stories publicly. And that's kind of in development, like what that will look like, but making sure that when we're doing things, we're integrating lots of customer stories in those processes.
That's awesome. So if you were at Amazon, you were that additional chair. Jeff Bezos always leaves an empty chair for the customer in all the meetings, which I thought was very, very interesting. Well, let's go into, I guess, diving a little bit into what is going on. So, let's talk about something that I thought was interesting. You made a point that you said you used to fight people about customer research.
Yeah.
Because you needed to fight to do this because everybody wanted their emails done right away. What are emails that need customer research, and what are emails that don't need customer research that people should be putting in? And is there a difference, or do they all need customer research?
I think that because the person receiving the email is a customer or a potential customer, that the research is relevant no matter what type of email it is. One of the reasons that I had to always kind of push on this research piece is because it doesn't have a directly attributable ROI. You can't point to the hours spent doing customer research and see any kind of graphs that show you which direction that research made things go. An email, once it's written and sent, you can see direct results. You see how much revenue it made, how many click-throughs, how many conversions. You see all of that in numbers. And, great tools like Klaviyo show you those things. There isn't a great tool, and it's not any tool's fault. There's no way to quantitatively measure customer research, the impact that it has on your business. But last year, I say last year, and I think I mean 2019 because 2020 just didn't exist. But I think it was last year, 2019, that I wrote a transactional email guide. It's still on my website. It's actually my pinned tweet on Twitter. And my push in that guide is to personalize your transactional emails more. So even the emails that are kind of rote, or you would think are all the same, or something that this quote the system sends, like, oh, well, we have our marketing emails, but then we have all these other emails that the system sends. Well, the system represents your brand no matter what. Like your customers don't actually know the difference between what is being sent through Shopify and what's being sent through Klaviyo. They don't. No. And quite often we do all this work on our marketing emails and we apply our brand and our voice and all those things. And then we never touch the transactional emails. And every Shopify transactional email looks exactly the same. Every single one. It's different products and different logo on it. But imagine the impact that your brand could have if it looked a little bit different from every other receipt that people get in their inbox, especially right now and over the last year where everything is online. That's the only way people are shopping. And so there's a lot of receipts in the inbox, and you have a major opportunity to stand out when you apply your customers' words and feedback to your transactional emails. So even transactional emails, I think, need customer research.
Yeah, I love that. And I think when you're talking about putting in their words, the thing I always think about is how do you help someone tell the story of your brand in their words, right? And it's because when you think about, when I look at all the companies I've worked with, the ones that are growing, the ones that have grown the fastest have usually grown the fastest because they have high levels of word of mouth.
Yeah.
And it's because they got a good product, and they also have some easy way to explain it, or a good story that is able to translate it.
Yeah.
The number of times I've heard somebody say, like, I saw somebody with like a Pura Vida bracelet on, and then I heard them say, like, oh yeah, this is a bracelet company, and they make jobs for artisans in Costa Rica. Like, oh, that's what that is. Like, everybody, that's a very simple story that they could relay to be able to sell your product to somebody else in a sense, right? It's like convey the messaging.
Bombas has a one-to-one, you buy Bombas socks, they're going to give a pair to a person who needs socks. Great. That message is so easy to spread to like a neighbor. And
it's so hard to track.
Yes.
Which makes it very, very hard to be able to. I remember, I think I was at Traffic and Conversion Summit. I don't know how many years ago. It was like maybe 5 years ago. And at one point, Ryan Dice was speaking, who's the head of digital marketer. And he was like, we had a realization this year. We were following 100% of the data, and it was making us bad people. And that's what I think about the difference between like the branding side and just following the email data, because sometimes, you can't tell the difference between, maybe you can tell a little bit, but it's not enough that you might be able to say like, oh, this is distinctly a lot better for us open rate wise than another email that is not personalized or customer research.
Yeah. Our BI team, our business insights team, can tell you a lot of information about how Klaviyo customers use email, what's successful, what's not successful. Our data science team is, they're always looking at like, well, what makes a successful email? But you can't actually know any of those things. I think, I like to look at quantitative research, those data points, and then validate that with qualitative research, because you can't actually know if that email worked based on the numbers, because numbers and computers, even though we want to think that they're perfect, they're not. Open rates, for example, is like the perfect example of how computers and numbers are wrong in email all the time, because open rates rely on a tracking pixel. And if the customer doesn't have that tracking pixel displayed, if they don't have display images turned on in their emails, that isn't going to register as an open, but they could have read your email as long as your email wasn't all one image. But yeah, they could have seen your email. They could have made a purchase without ever opening your email because they saw your email in the inbox and they went, oh, right. And then they click over to their browser and they buy something. Or they're checking their email like I'm doing right now on my phone, looking at my phone, sitting at my desk. Oh, there's an email from Feet. I'm going to put this down because it's a tiny screen. I'm going to go on my computer and look at their new product on my big computer screen. So, we have all those different attribution problems at play, and the qualitative research is what tells us the truth behind the quantitative stuff. So yeah, numbers are infallible, and you have to qualify it with that like dark data, what are people saying? You can't really track that unless you talk to your customers.
No, and it's actually even entirely new that we have an expectation that we should be able to track everything, right?
Yeah.
It didn't exist before Google AdWords and paid social tracking. Like it was like, oh, we have a marketing budget and we have sales that come from it and we can track a little bit, but the attribution is not, we get very addicted to like, I put in $1 and I get out $1.80, or I get out $3.
Yes. Yeah. And there's Amy Hoy has this great and Alex Hillman together in their program. They talk about sales safari is what they call it. It's basically like a listening tour. I've heard other people call it, where you can go and just listen. You don't even have to talk to any customers. You can show up in Slack communities they're in. You can be in Facebook groups. You can search social channels for mentions of your product. You can, depending on what your product is, you can read Amazon book reviews. Those are some of my favorite things, especially when you're trying to figure out what is the problem people are trying to solve. If there's books on that topic, and you go and you read those 3-star book reviews, they're great. They're full. 3 stars are like, this is great. This is what's missing. And then you get to figure out, how do I solve for that what's missing piece? And even if your product isn't a book, you can still learn a lot from those Amazon reviews.
Oh, and also you'll get incredible headlines from Amazon books.
Yes.
Because they're all sorted by the best headline generally.
Right. Yeah.
Best headline
the reviews.
Wins.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
It's amazing. And I know that there are people who like compete to be like top reviewers. So there's some good copy in those Amazon reviews. So yeah, but it's all like a listening tour. You're going around and listening and looking for those mentions. And for instance, we just launched at Klaviyo a fully revamped SMS product. It's amazing now. And I am in a Slack community of agency owners, and someone in that community last week or so posted like, hey, anyone who's using Klaviyo's SMS, here's this little trick that does this thing that it's not really clear natively in the app how to do it. And so that's a little piece of data that, great, that means that you're using it. And here's some feedback too, that they likely never would submit to Klaviyo directly as feedback, but I can take that and give it to our product team, our SMS lead, and say like, here, this is what people are talking about. And then they get to decide what to do with that. And when you run your business, that's the position you get to find yourself in.
For sure. Well, let's talk about the SMS revamp, because I watched the video release, the live product release.
Yeah.
And I basically, the way I summed it up was a lot of the things I thought were inevitable that Klaviyo was going to do with SMS rolled out, with some things that did not end up rolling out. But what are the biggest changes or things people should be aware of now that they now have, if they haven't yet turned on if they haven't yet started sending SMS and they've been a Klaviyo customer for a while? Because there's a lot of people like that.
Well, I'm interested to know what the things are that you thought would be released and weren't, because like that to me is fascinating. And this is what happens when you listen a lot, is you hear that. Like I heard you say that, and then that's where I wanted to focus versus your actual question.
I think the criticism that I heard was no international SMS yet, and no ability to use other like SMS collection tools, like Just Uno or something like that. If you already have or OptiMonk or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are the two like main ones, and then I think shortcodes. Were the three things that were like maybe inevitable in the future, but weren't out yet. On the flip side, a ton of stuff did come out, which was you can use SMS like email.
Yep.
In a sense, where you could just put them into your flows. But yeah, so what else?
Yep. Building directly into your flows. A conversational SMS. So you have the ability inside of Klaviyo to have, if your customer replies to an SMS, you can then reply to them real time, just like customer support. And
does that link out to something like Gorgeous or a help desk yet, or is that still coming?
Not yet. I believe that's part of the plan, but those kinds of things, and like international SMS, for example, it's like we have to. There's more work that needs to be done, so we want to get
for sure
the core of the product out. I think that the biggest reason that people are bringing SMS into Klaviyo, that they're Klaviyo customers, they're using something else for SMS, and then we launched our new SMS product, and they're kind of like coming back to Klaviyo for SMS, is the things I'm hearing the most are, well, one, I can have everything in one place and pay for it once and not have multiple different products that I'm like clicking in and out of. Well, two different bills. And then also having two screens open next to each other, or clicking in and out of things to see where are my email flows, where are my SMS flows. Like now you can just see it all together and not have to worry about over messaging your customers or your subscribers. And then attribution, I think, is the biggest reason that people are coming over. It's so hard to tell if you're sending an email and an SMS and you're sending it from two different platforms, it's really hard to tell which one of those led to the final conversion on a sale. And
very, very challenging.
Yeah.
Because like we just talked about, you made the example of you see an email on your phone, you buy it on your desktop, or you see an email come through and you're like, oh, I needed to buy that thing.
Yep.
And you don't even open it, and you get a text message, you don't even open it, but you see that it's coming through. There's so many different ways that make it challenging. Yeah.
Or, you read an email and then you get an SMS, and the SMS has a direct link. And so there's something, people respond differently to different things depending on who they are, where they are, what kind of mood they're in. So there's all different reasons that people might choose to respond to an SMS versus an email. But now you have the ability to track the proper attribution channel. So we're not going to attribute the sale to SMS if you had also sent an email and they opened that email and clicked through from it, even if they clicked through from SMS. So, that being able to tell which channel is most successful for you is a huge pull for people coming back. That's what I'm hearing from customers. I've talked to a lot of people at this point about that switch, and that's the biggest reason is attribution, and then just simplifying life and not having to have a million apps open.
Yes, which is something that's hard to put a price on, but it's very valuable.
Yeah.
How do you think about upgrading flows, current flows? Like if someone's in it, what are you telling people who SMS just rolled out. They haven't yet sent that many of them. They have flows up and running. Where would you dive in and get things going first?
For SMS?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would look at your, and I'd be interested what you would do too, Austin. I would personally look at your like least successful flow and try SMS there. Or maybe not your like very least, but kind of on those bottom flows, the ones that aren't performing incredibly well. I think you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you are trying to optimize an already high performing flow and adding SMS into the mix. It's like, it's not broke, so don't fix it, So it's like, to me, I would look at the lower performing flows and say, where can we swap out SMS in this flow? Do we want to go entirely SMS with this flow? I think a baseline, you need a welcome flow for SMS. So when they opt in, it's not just opt in, here's your coupon code or whatever we promised you, and then never hear from us again.
10 months later, Black Friday.
You get another random SMS. I think that's going to happen this Black Friday, and I think it's going to kill SMS. I'm a little nervous about that, but I think...
I got one yesterday that was like, hey, Austin, we're trying to deliver something to you, like look out for a FedEx person. I have no idea what brand it was from, what it was. No reminder of how I got on this list at all. And I still don't even know what I'm getting. Like nothing showed up yet. Or I have nowhere else to go to even figure it out.
Right. And if it had a link in it, I would read that and think it's phishing and not click the link. So even if it's actually helpful and I did order something and I could use that link, without identification of who you are, what the reference is, I would definitely delete that message. I'm a little worried for SMS come Black Friday. But so one baseline is like welcome sequence, having a flow of emails that goes out or SMS messages that go out over time that engage your subscribers beyond that initial coupon offer. And then looking at your flows and saying like, where can we lean on SMS a bit and see if it helps boost any of these lower performing flows. Yeah.
I think that's a good way to approach it. I've also been talking a little bit about taking the flows and like the ones that are action based where people don't take an action, like upgrading them by adding. So if you've got an abandoned cart email series and you happen to have people's email and SMS, then maybe after 4 emails, if nobody makes a purchase, have an SMS that goes out. And upgrade ones that, because your only goal with an abandoned cart is to get someone to make a purchase. It's really just like pretty simple. And then on the post-purchase side of things, where I see really interesting, one of the companies that I think does an incredible job is 1-800-CONTACTS. I don't know if I don't know if you wear contacts, but
I don't. I used to, but now I'm all glasses.
Okay. Well, I will tell you, if you ever buy from 1-800-CONTACTS, they are relentless. And but they do it in a way where they make it so easy. It's just like they already have your contact lens prescription. They've set it up so forever they're following up with you, being like, hey, we don't want you to run out. If you are happening to run out right now, just click here and you can make a purchase. And they do that with email. And then if you don't purchase for a while, they'll send you an SMS and it directs to their app and you can go make a purchase. It's so easy. I found myself in times where I'm like, oh, you know what? I actually am kind of low on contacts. Boom. I'll make a purchase.
Beautiful.
And for people who have replenishables, to me, it makes so much sense to just continue that string out of emails over time and then throw in an SMS email or message every once in a while for that.
Yeah. I would argue that an abandoned cart has two jobs. Its number one job is to get the sale, to keep the cart from being abandoned permanently. And its number two job is, if it is a truly permanently abandoned cart, to get feedback on why that was. So I think that that's a miss in a lot of abandoned cart sequences, is like, and if you put yourself in the customer's shoes, I put something in a cart, you're messaging me, hey, buy the thing. Hey, we saw you looking, like being creepy with your copy in the first place.
Yeah. We pixeled you, and I think people should actually just go really all in on that. We have a pixel on your computer, and so we're tracking everything you do, and it tells us you didn't make a purchase. That should be your copy.
I love that copy. Please, somebody use that, because I feel like it's just so honest. I think that as a society, enough people are onto how abandoned carts work that I think it might actually benefit you to use that copy. But the push is like, buy the thing. Okay, you're not going to buy the thing. Forget you. And as a consumer, that just kind of feels like all I am to you is a credit card. And we have so many options in the world that, again, we're not connected to each other physically. And so we have to find some other way to connect. And so sometimes we want to connect to the brands, the products that we're using, especially like a consumable where we're putting it on our body or in our body or, using it every single day. We want to feel a connection. And so when you start to feel like all you are is a credit card, that breaks down that connection and that trust with the brand. And then you become a product. And it's really easy to walk away from a product. It's much harder to walk away from people that you're connected with.
I think that's an interesting point, and I haven't thought about that your goal is to get feedback. Because you could set it up in a way. I mean, when you think about the buying process, a lot of times they may throw something in their cart and then maybe they go to a competitor and they make a purchase of something. Mm-hmm. So they don't need, or they go to the store and they buy it, so they don't need that anymore. It would be actually pretty easy to throw in a link that says, I actually don't need this anymore. I've already made a purchase. Yeah. And then if someone clicks on that, you could even, if you know that it typically takes 3 months for somebody to use a similar type product, maybe you could start marketing again in 3 months for that, or pull them out of the abandoned cart sequence, whatever. And that's interesting. And also, or at the same time, you just get more feedback and you figure out what actually people are doing. Reply back and tell us if you purchase something else.
Yeah, reply back or click a link, something that makes it super easy for them to take that action. I think about, have you ever listed something on Facebook Marketplace to sell?
I haven't, but I've listed a bunch of stuff on Craigslist.
Okay. So on Facebook Marketplace specifically, when you list something to sell and then you sell it, when you go to mark it as sold, Facebook then asks you, did you sell it on Facebook or did you sell it somewhere else? And there's a couple of options. Sold it somewhere else, sold it on Facebook. I think there's a couple other options there. Then the next screen is, if you sold it on Facebook, which one of these people that interacted with your post did you sell it to? And then I think if you choose I sold it somewhere else, then the next screen is those other options. Like, did you sell it on Craigslist? Did you sell it through Nextdoor? Like where did you sell it? And it's all just gathering data on how successful the marketplace platform is. But I feel like that is fully applicable to abandoned carts, where you can say, okay, you didn't make this purchase, which is you telling us that you didn't want to buy it. So now we're going to ask you a couple questions.
Yeah.
And the other thing with that, with abandoned carts, is I know my own experience is I have one email linked to my Shop Pay. And if you have Shop Pay on your website, then I'll sometimes sign up with like my work email. I'll sign up to your emails and I get all these abandoned carts, and then I make the purchase and it's actually connected to my other email address. And so I keep getting abandoned cart emails after I've already made the purchase. And I've definitely sometimes been like, they do not know what they're doing. I made that purchase, and then it takes me a while to connect that I actually use two different email addresses.
Multiple emails.
Yeah, but that happens more often than I think people want to admit. And so,
for sure.
Yeah, just letting them say.
You've got a work email, a home email. Sometimes you have multiple work emails.
Yeah.
And then you don't,
And you don't remember what one you signed up for and which one's connected to your PayPal or your Shop Pay or whatever. And
maybe you're trying to game the system and get 2 coupon codes,
right?
Which is probably what people are doing.
Yep. When you have multiple email addresses with a name that is not a common name. Yeah. And, there's data privacy laws that prevent us from like really being able to fix that problem other than talking to people.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. You can do that in so many different ways and use that to pull more information. And what's nice is that it's marketing automation. And so once you automate it, you can continue to get results from the future.
Right.
In the future.
Yeah. And then use it to inform your campaigns.
Yeah. I want to hear from you because you're deep in the marketing automation world. Why do you love marketing automation?
I love email specifically because it feels very personal. I think your inbox is kind of your digital living room, and it takes a fair amount to get somebody to give out their email address. I know plenty of people who say they give out fake email addresses, and it is to a point and the equivalent of giving somebody your phone number. So it feels like here's this personal invite from me as a consumer to come talk to me, come into my living room, hang out, let's have a conversation. And I think email offers such an opportunity to do that, to build relationship, because the subscriber, the customer, has given you permission to do that. Versus, billboards are cool, but they're just there when you're driving down the street. You see them whether you want to or not. And email's like something that somebody's asked for. So I think that's why I love email specifically so much. I like marketing automation because it just makes life easier. And, you don't have to remember to do things all the time. You don't have to send surveys every week to get this information. You can build it into your automation and gather that data on an ongoing basis, and then just go in and analyze. You get to save all that time of like building the survey or building the system. Then you can just go back and analyze the data. So I like the idea of being able to do it once and then have it serve you long term.
I totally agree. That was a light bulb moment for me when I was first getting involved with marketing. I was like, wait, I can set this up and it can run in perpetuity for me. And I only have to, and I can take my best campaigns and I can put them into some sort of a sequence. So all new people come in and I don't have to rewrite them. This is incredible.
Yep. And
I think, both of us transitioned from a space outside of e-commerce into e-commerce. Mm-hmm. And I just noticed that I think even to this day, other industries, whether that's like SaaS or I was in business to business, like high ticket sales, are a lot better at utilizing the automation, because I think in e-commerce, you can just get so focused on spending money on paid social or spending money on AdWords and like put $1 in, get money out. And you don't have to think about, and when someone's selling something that's high ticket, like $10,000 or $100,000, well, they are a lot more cognizant of what they're doing, their communication, because the long lifetime value is much higher, or actually even if the lifetime value is high in the sense that it's like a high ticket item. And I feel like that same stuff can be utilized in a really, really excellent way for brands that are just driving sales on paid social. And it's just still not there yet.
I agree. I mean, the lessons that those kind of high ticket B2B sales and SaaS companies have to teach. So SaaS companies, for the large majority of them, operate on a subscription model. And typically they incentivize the growth of your business, or they support the growth of your business, which then incentivizes them because they make more money the more your business grows. And the longer you are a customer, the more money they make. That is kind of the complete opposite of a lot of e-commerce mindset, which is we'll just go acquire more customers. Like, it's fine. It's a $15 product that costs us $3 to make. So we'll just go run more ads and acquire new customers. And you're like trying to solve the problem on that end versus solving the problem internally. One of the most powerful things that has impacted my career is when I was in-house previously, and there was a question posed of like, what if we never paid $1 for acquisition again? And actually, what if we completely shut down customer acquisition? We could not have any new customers, even if they were banging down the door. How would we grow our monthly recurring revenue and our business as a whole? How would we grow the business without any new customers? And I think it's a really good exercise to take yourself through, no matter what your brand is, whether you're a subscription model or not, because it tells you how you communicate with your existing customers and how much automation is built into your business model, and how it also shows you how much you're relying on acquisition to fix other problems that are quite honestly low-hanging fruit. Like, that's a really easy fix a lot of times. And acquisition is kind of a bigger fish to fry. And you're busy trying to fix this big acquisition problem when you could just stop and look internally at what you're doing with your existing customers, fix those problems, and then watch that acquisition flywheel just keep going and over and over again.
I always think of acquisition as something that works really well until it doesn't.
Yep.
And then it gets really scary for people. They're like, oh, no, don't think about raising the floor in their business with all the transactional emails and the back end stuff until it's gone. And then, as we've seen over the last year, people heavily relying on paid social. It's been incredibly volatile. And it may be the easiest times ever in June of last year or May of last year. And then it became the hardest around the holidays. There was like so much volatility.
Yeah.
And that all it doesn't go away, but it's decreased when you've got other channels going on. I love that exercise. I had an excellent interview with a guy who ran a company that sells commercial marijuana growing products, and so he can't advertise basically anywhere.
Yeah.
And he actually figured out a way to get negative customer acquisition costs by having these large grow houses pay him to film cribs, like a cribs style show, like YouTube video. Yep. It was really nice. And he'd go in and interview them and talk about all their stuff. So he'd get paid like 50, I don't know how much, 50 grand or 100 grand to do this and show off these incredible grow operations that used all of his products. And then he'd link to his store.
Yep.
And it was genius. I was like, you're thinking, it forced him to run a thought process that was different than everybody else. Cause it's like, I can't go out and just spend money to acquire customers. I have to think about this in a way that nobody else does. Mm-hmm. And that's super powerful. And that leads to breakthroughs in your business that your customers aren't having, your competitors aren't having.
Yeah. And it's that, you don't have to lead acquisition for your business. Your customers can lead acquisition for you, but you have to give them the experience that they want to tell other people about.
Who does it the best? Who's like in your top 3? Val's Hall of Fame of good email marketing.
Olipop does a really great job. It's really good. Everlane also does an incredible job of telling their story. And then they have my heart because they send some text-based emails and not just relying on images. Top 3. I mean, there are a lot of people doing it really well. I think on the SaaS side, a company that I look to a lot for inspiration is Webflow, because they lean into their community a lot, and they, work with creators within their community to do exactly what we're just talking about, to talk about Webflow and naturally within their, hey, I'm going to live stream building a website, and happens to be on Webflow. Webflow works with people to do that. And then that's like part of their acquisition strategy. So
smart.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of people doing it really well. Any company that Wilson's worked at is doing it well. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of opportunity out there. And the one thing I always tell people is, you hear conversations like this and then go like, there's so much to do, I'm just going to do nothing. And I would say, pick one thing and do that. And don't worry about everything else. It's the same thing with segmentation. People hear segmentation and they're like, well, there's so many segments to build, I'm just going to not build any. Well, pick one. Like, what's your biggest area of opportunity? And do it one time. Have 2 segments of your audience and then go from there, because you can't build something without having some kind of data. And you'll only get that data by going off and implementing something that, you heard work somewhere and you've seen it done, and you keep hearing these words over and over again, and you should do it, but you just stop doing it because it seems like a really big task. But it doesn't have to be. You can just pick one thing. Like, if you pick, I'm going to go look at all my transactional emails and see where I can change some of the copy and make things a little bit more, in line with the way my customers talk, or in line with the way their brand talks, because your brand probably has a voice. Just do that. Spend an afternoon going through your transactional emails and make that change, see what happens.
The first company I worked at, we were on Infusionsoft. Mm-hmm. It was a long time ago. It was almost like 10 years ago, I guess. At the time, they were doing something called Ultimate Marketer, where they gave away prizes for who did the best job using Infusionsoft. We got second place. And that was because the CMO and the co-founder, he put in an hour a day for like 3 months of just trying to put an email in a day. And that's all he did. And I would work with him on it, and we'd put in these emails. And sure enough, after 3 months, which is an hour a day, it was really working well. Yeah. And we were selling like $100,000 franchises with one salesperson, and there was hundreds of emails, triggered emails going out, and all these different flows. And it was incredible. And it just, like you said, just get started, get working, and don't be afraid to mess things up a little bit as you get your hands dirty in there trying to figure things out, because you'll figure it out pretty quick.
Yeah. It's that old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
Emails.
Val, this is awesome. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me.
Thanks for having me.
Really interesting. And if people want to connect with you, what's the best way? Is it Twitter?
Twitter.
I know you're active on Twitter.
Twitter at Love Val Geisler on Twitter.
Awesome. Val, thank you so much.
Thanks,
And
Austin.
I will talk to you soon.
This is fun. Thanks for having me.